Does your political opponent feel like a mortal enemy? In our hyperpolarized moment, we're taught to retreat into tribes and to treat anyone outside them as a threat to be silenced, not a person to be reasoned with. 2,000 years before your last argument on the internet, a Roman emperor and a line of Greek philosophers built an entire discipline out of refusing to see it that way. They called it Stoic Cosmopolitanism. Cosmopolitanism, in its original Stoic sense, isn't a vague call to be nice. It's an argument. If reason is shared by every human being, then the law built out of reason is shared too, and the person across the aisle from you already belongs to your city, whether either of you has noticed yet. Marcus Aurelius wrote the case out for himself, not for an audience, in the 4th book of the Meditations. If our intellectual part is common to us all, then reason too, whereby we're rational beings, is common. And if that's true, he goes on, then the law that governs how rational beings should act is common as well, which means we're all citizens, and the world itself is arranged like a single state. He wasn't being sentimental. He was running an argument to its logical end. Shared reason implies shared law implies shared citizenship. Which means the stranger you've decided is your enemy isn't outside your jurisdiction. By his own logic, they were never anything but a fellow citizen you hadn't gotten around to recognizing yet. That single move from shared reason to shared citizenship is the whole doctrine in miniature, and it's what this film is going to unpack. If your opponent is a citizen, not an enemy, the entire shape of the argument changes. Before the Stoics, there was a provocation. Diogenes the Cynic asked where he was from, refused to name a city at all. He called himself Cosmopolites, a citizen of the world, belonging to nowhere so he could belong anywhere. It was an insult dressed as a philosophy. No country, no tribe, no local loyalty worth the name. Zeno of Citium took that same word and did something Diogenes never bothered to do. He built an actual argument underneath it. Zeno's move was radical. Reason is the one thing every human shares, regardless of birthplace. And if reason is shared, the city built on it can't stop at a border. It has to be the size of the human race. Diogenes Laertius records the story. Zeno was a merchant, sailing a cargo of purple dye from Phoenicia to Piraeus, when his ship wrecked and he lost everything he owned. He wandered into Athens with nothing, wandered into a bookseller's stall out of boredom, and heard someone reading Xenophon's account of Socrates out loud. He asked the bookseller where he could find a man like that. The bookseller pointed him toward Crates the Cynic, and Zeno never went back to trading. He spent the rest of his life at a painted porch in Athens, the Stoa, building a philosophy that said true citizenship has nothing to do with the cargo you lost or the port you were born in. He'd lost the one city he had. What he built instead was an argument for belonging to all of them. A shipwrecked merchant with no home left is a strange place to discover you belong everywhere. But that's exactly where the doctrine started. Cosmopolitanism sounds abstract until a little-known Stoic named Hierocles of Alexandria gave it a shape you could actually use. He pictured every person standing at the center of a set of circles. The first circle is just you. Then your body, then your immediate family, then extended family, then neighbors, then your countrymen, then, at the very edge, all of humanity. Hierocles' instruction wasn't to shrink your circle to just the people already inside it. It was the opposite. Draw the outer circles toward the center, treating the stranger a little more like family. He wasn't offering a poster for your wall. He described a discipline. Use the right kinship word for who someone actually is to you, then extend it one ring further than habit allows. Call a cousin brother. Call a fellow citizen kinsman. Call a stranger from another country a countryman before you've earned the right to call them anything closer. This looks like wordplay, but Hierocles meant it literally. The Stoics believed the words you use for people train the feeling you have toward them, not the other way around. Speak of a political opponent the way you'd speak of a difficult cousin, not an invading army, and something in how you actually treat them starts to shift, whether you meant it to or not. The circles were never a metaphor to admire. They were a set of daily verbal habits, aimed at making the outermost ring feel less far away. The goal was never to erase the circles. It was to keep pulling the far ones closer, one word at a time. Underneath the ethics is a physics. The Stoics believed the whole cosmos was bound together by sympatheia, cosmic sympathy, the same way organs are bound together in a single living body. Marcus Aurelius put it in the plainest possible image. What is bad for the hive cannot be good for the bee. You don't get to thrive while the thing you belong to is dying. If sympatheia is true, destroying a political opponent was never a private win. You and your opponent are cells in the same civic organism. There's no version of the hive losing that leaves your cell untouched. He returns to organic images again and again in the meditations: hands, feet, eyelids, rows of teeth. Parts that only make sense in cooperation, never in isolation. A hand cut off from the body isn't free, it's dead. A person who's cut themselves off from humanity to fight it is in the same condition, whether they can feel it yet or not. Translate the hive into a country, and the mistake is everywhere. Treating a fellow citizen's total humiliation as your side's victory, as if the civic body they are still part of doesn't include you. Sympatheia doesn't ask you to stop disagreeing. It asks you to notice that a permanently damaged opponent is a permanently damaged hive, and you still have to live in it. The bee that helps burn down the hive doesn't get to keep its own separate honey. There isn't one. Cosmic sympathy is the reason the doctrine isn't sentimental, it's self-interest, correctly understood. Marcus Aurelius opens the second book of the Meditations with a rehearsal he ran every morning. Say to yourself at dawn, I shall meet the meddling, the ungrateful, the treacherous, the unsociable. He wasn't venting. He was preparing, deciding in advance how he'd think about difficult people before any specific difficult person had actually shown up. His reasoning for staying calm isn't that these people are secretly fine. It's that they act that way through ignorance of what's good and evil. A different problem than malice. One anger can't fix, and understanding sometimes can. He goes further than don't take it personally. He reminds himself that he shares the same rational nature and the same portion of the divine as the very people irritating him. None of them can implicate him in anything shameful unless he lets them, and none of them can be truly angry at him, since a rational being can't hate what shares its own nature. This isn't Marcus improvising. He's inheriting a much older Socratic claim, one the Stoics kept. No one does wrong on purpose. Every wrongdoer is chasing something they believe is good for them. Nobody wakes up choosing evil as evil. They're simply wrong about where the good is, the same way Marcus admits he's been wrong before. Which is why his rehearsal ends not in resignation, but in relief. The meddling and the ungrateful aren't a special category of monster, just people running the same faulty math he's caught himself running. If wrongdoing is always a mistake about the good, then anger at the wrongdoer is arguing with the wrong culprit. None of this stayed in antiquity. Fast forward, and the mechanism working against it is easy to name. Outrage is the most engaging content there is, and engagement is the entire business model. A platform that got users to treat opponents as fellow citizens of reason would be a worse business than one that gets them to treat opponents as enemy combatants. Cosmopolitanism is bad for engagement. Every pylon, every quote dogpile, Every algorithmic worst version of your opponent is a small vote against the argument Marcus Aurelius and Hierocles built. Recognizing the incentive exists is most of the defense. Hierocles and Marcus give you a two-question filter before firing back at a hostile reply. Is this person's nature actually different from mine, or are they just mistaken, the way I've been mistaken before? And which circle am I currently refusing to draw inward? Am I treating a fellow citizen of reason like an alien species because the feed made that feel free? Running the check doesn't mean agreeing with them. It means you stop needing them to be evil in order to disagree with them, which is a much smaller, much more honest claim. It also means the algorithm's core tactic, treating the worst person in the other tribe as representative of the whole tribe, stops working on you because you've decided tribes aren't the relevant unit. The circle and error check is slow and unglamorous next to a viral dunk. It's also the only one of the two that a Stoic would recognize as actually winning anything. An algorithm that profits from your enemies isn't a reason to abandon the doctrine. It's the clearest argument yet for why you need it. Epictetus taught something the internet version of cosmopolitanism usually drops. He never asked anyone to abandon their own city, party, or family for the sake of the cosmos. His actual teaching was dual citizenship. You belong to your own particular city, and you belong to the cosmopolis, the city of the world, at the same time, and neither cancels the other. Applied to arguing, this extends the dichotomy of control. You don't control whether your opponent changes their mind. You control only your own reasoning, and whether you treated them as a citizen or an enemy while you argued. It means you can hold your local loyalty, your party, your country, your side of an argument, without needing the other side erased, because the cosmopolitan citizenship was never in competition with the local one. It means judging your own performance in an argument by whether you argued like someone who believes the other person shares your reason, not by whether you won. A cosmopolitan who loses the argument but never stopped treating their opponent as a fellow citizen has done the only part of the job that was ever actually theirs to do. Winning the argument was never the assignment. Arguing like a citizen, win or lose, was. Start where we started. A stranger who feels like a mortal enemy, and a 2,000-year-old argument that says he isn't one, not because niceness demands it, but because reason, followed all the way to its logical end, demands it. Cosmopolites became a structured claim. The claim became circles to draw inward. The circles became a hive you can't burn without burning yourself. And the hive became a way to meet a difficult person without becoming one. Seneca left the cleanest image of it. 2 republics into odio, the small one we're born into, and a greater one of gods and all people. We belong to simply by being rational, its borders measured by how far the sun reaches. You don't need to feel cosmic sympathy for someone to act on it. You need one specific habit. Before you respond to your next political opponent, run the circle and error check first. Ask whether their nature is really different from yours, or whether they are just mistaken the way you've been mistaken, and let your reply come from the answer to that question instead of from the feed. That single habit repeated is the entire doctrine and practice, not a feeling you wait to have, but a question you remember to ask. Your opponent's citizenship was never up for a vote. The only open question was whether you'd recognize it in time to argue like it was true.